facilities, including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable, and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable, and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable, and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable, and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable, and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world...
If everyone could take your seats, please. Councillors and visitors, please remember to switch your electronic devices to silent. And welcome everybody. I would also like to welcome our viewers at home who are watching the meeting via the live stream. Before we get started this evening, in line with state government restrictions, it remains mandatory for everyone to have signed in using their Safer WA QR code or hard copy register. We'll now move on with the meeting. And if I can please ask you all to be upstanding, and Deputy Mayor Bianca Sandri, could you please read out the opening prayer?
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions to show goodness, honesty, understanding and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Amen. And if I could ask you to remain standing, Councillor Farrelly, could you please read the acknowledgement of country?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respect for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Please note that without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. Members of the public should also note that no action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. That now brings us to item 1, which is the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 3rd of August 2021 open at 7:01 p.m. Item 2, apologies. I do have an apology this evening from Councillor Hatton. Item 3, approved leave of absence. Councillor Karen Caddy is granted a leave of absence for the period of 29th of July 2021 to the 5th of August 2021 inclusive. Item 4, disclosure of interest. From the Community and Resources Committee of the 27th of July, Councillor David Lagan disclosed an impartial interest in item 12.1 WF1 as he holds shares in a lithium mining company, Lithium Australia. Councillors, are there any other disclosures of interest this evening? No indication. I'll move on. Item 5, petitions. Councillors, do you have any unverified petitions you would like to present this evening? No indication. Item 6, responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and all questions from previous council meeting were published in the minutes of that meeting. That brings us to item 7, which is public question time. To enable all questions to be asked and responded to without the need for multiple extensions of time, could I please request a mover and a seconder for the following motion that in accordance with clause 5.712 of the City of Stirling's Meeting Procedures Local Law 2009, public question time be extended for the time needed to respond to all questions from members of the public who have registered. Move Councillor Sargent, seconded Councillor Ree. If you can just show of hands for the vote, please. That's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And the first person wishing to ask a question is Monica Jarrett. If you'd like to come up, please. And just your name and suburb. And sorry, yep, microphone on. Thanks.
Yes, Monica Jarrett, Karrinyup. Thank you, everyone. Could the City of Stirling please provide all related costs spent to assist the AMP and Row Group with the Karrinyup West residential development application, for example, the costs and time associated with the design review panel, planning department time and resources, meetings held with AMP and Row Group, and any other miscellaneous associated costs, please?
Thank you. And look, I can answer the first part and say yes, definitely with the design review panel we can. I'll get Mr Roddick just to provide some further information.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Ms Jarrett, for the question. To date, the costs related to the design review panel meetings for the proposed mixed-use development at Karrinyup account for $21,653. This equates to $4,330 per meeting. In terms of the question about staff and costs associated with this application, the role of the staff is to assess the application and liaise with both the applicant and community members. We don't record, I guess, time spent in that regard or costs. I wouldn't be able to provide you those answers, but you have the development review panel, the figures there.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I do have another question, Mayor, if I could.
Sure.
We, the Karrinyup residents for responsible development, request Mayor Irwin to make deputation at the next JDAP meeting being held in relation to the Karrinyup West residential development.
Thank you. And that obviously, when the RAR comes to council after the following planning meeting, then that'll be a decision that council will make if a deputation is made and who makes it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lynn Nowak, please. Good evening.
Good evening, Lynn Nowak, Karrinyup. At the JDAP meeting of May 31st, AMP were asked, had they considered any options other than the high-rise, such as possibly on top of the shopping centre? They had no answer at the time and looked somewhat sheepish to those of us watching. Has the City of Stirling ever chased this up with AMP? Why or why not?
No. It's a simple answer I can give you. Mr Roddick, would you like to add anything?
Through you, Mayor. Thanks, Ms Nock, for the question. No, we haven't followed that up. The City's role is to assess the application as proposed, I guess, through our comments back to the applicant, through our request for information, and where we've commented against where the application doesn't meet the planning framework. There would have been opportunity for the applicant to maybe amend their development, but that's their choice, and we've got to consider what they put before us.
Thank you. Number 2. At the same JDAP meeting regarding the Karrinyup high-rise on May the 31st, AMP were also asked what made AMP change from 92 thereabout apartments to the significantly larger development of apartments. They had no answer and, in fact, avoided the question. They would have made very good politicians. In a very roundabout fashion, answering something entirely different. Is the City of Stirling aware of the reasons for this change of development idea? And if not, can this be followed through to achieve an honest and logical reasoning from the AMP group?
So the most honest answer I can give you is no, we are not aware of any reasons why they would. I'm sure it's something that the residents could probably follow up and request AMP for. We're happy to follow up and ask them for you.
We will.
Thank you. I'm sure you will.
Number 3. Will the City of Stirling follow up on that May 31st meeting of JDAP and their decisions in particular with legal counsel and representation at the next, possibly September JDAP meeting, with the intent of holding AMP to the objective of maintaining the Karrinyup positive community needs and a lack of negative impact on the community as a whole?
The simple answer is yes, we will follow up and have representation from our staff, but there is no intent to have legal counsel at that meeting.
Thank you.
Tony Jarrett, please.
Yeah, good evening, Tony Jarrett, Karrinyup. Just wanted to start with a little bit of appreciation, if we could. I'll just read this out. It's firstly, the Karrinyup Residents for Responsible Development acknowledge the city and its officers for all their exemplary work on the RAR and their conduct in the JDAP of 31st of May. Right from Councillor Farrelly's opening address, City of Stirling presented forthright and compelling argument for refusal, which deserved more qualified consideration by certain panel members than I think they got. Further, the commentary and questions of Councillors Boothman and Migdale were intelligent and relevant, we found, highlighting their previous knowledge and experience with this development. Unlike the other members who showed that they did not comprehend what had been approved as part of the original 2015. Thanks very much. Panel member Syme, in our opinion, was rather flippant in dismissing the city's
Mr. Jarrett,
RAR.
whilst I do appreciate your praise of council and the officers, I do have to ask you to get to a question.
All right. Oh, come on. Stuck. There we go.
That's right.
With this as a background, my questions are these. Once the JDAP has delivered its final determinations, will the city satisfy itself that any concerns that the RAR identified have been properly addressed?
Mr. Roddick?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Jarrett, for the question. The city will have to consider that at that time. At this point, there is no decision made by the JDAP. Depending on that decision, the city will, I guess, review where it goes from there. Standardly, unless there is a question of law, there's usually no right to challenge, but we'll have to take that at a future date and consider that at that time.
Okay. There was a recent news article concerning JDAP approval of a contested development in Broadway, Nedlands, and it was there was a certain panel member reported to have said if the panel went along with the idea, there was a leafy green roof of Broadway with no policy to back it up, it would be making stuff up. I don't accept the fact that this doesn't fit within Nedlands' aesthetic. Now, these comments seem to have been very similar to what we got at our own JDAP. Can the city confirm to us that it, in its RAR, considered local and state policy and didn't make stuff up as we might be accused of, in our own one?
Sure.
If this is confirmed, could it be that, wouldn't this render Mr. Syme's comments about Karrinyup insupportable?
I can confirm we didn't make stuff up, Mr. Roddick.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Jarrett. To the answer to your first question, absolutely. Our RAR considered relevant local and state planning policy and didn't make things up. In terms of what Mr. Syme comments about, or JDAP members are able to voice their own opinion on the city's responsible authority report as well as a proposed development.
Yep. Should JDAP's determination go against the city and its residents, is it the case that JDAP provides justification to its decision, or for its decision, by addressing all of the concerns or the concerns raised in the city's RAR? We wonder if there's any avenue to pursue if the city isn't satisfied that the concerns have been justified.
Thank you, Mr. Roddick.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mr Jarrett. At this moment, we can't preempt a decision. JDAP should give reasons, should their decision be inconsistent with the city's RAR. It's very unlikely that they would comment on all the matters raised, but they should comment on key matters should they defer or change, not go with the city's recommendation.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Mr Jarrett. Simon Wheeler, please.
Simon Wheeler, Scarborough. Good evening, Mayor, councillors and staff. Mayor, in 2015, the City obtained legal advice and an opinion from McLeod's solicitors and senior counsel KM Petit in support of their recommended refusal of the 2015 commercial expansion at Karrinyup. What was the total cost of legal advice to the City in that matter?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Mr Wheeler. We'll have to provide you that detail in writing as soon as possible.
You haven't got a rough idea.
I don't have a rough idea.
Okay.
We don't have a rough idea.
Okay.
We'll make sure we get it to you as soon as possible.
Okay.
And it will be published in the minutes.
Fantastic. What were the city's? You're going to give me the same answer, aren't you? What were the city's total
There's
legal
every
costs?
chance, Mr Wheeler.
Yeah, okay. What were the city's total legal costs incurred appealing the District Court matter WADC 35 of 2018, which I did submit the question, so to give you a bit of a heads up, and which council resolution approved that spending?
I will see. Does any officer have any indication, Ms Walker? No, we'll respond to you in writing. We will get it to you as soon as possible, Mr Wheeler.
Okay. My third question then is, Councillor Felicity Farrelly's notice of motion that the City obtains legal advice on any legal implications of approving the Karrinyup West development application, contrary to the requirements of the relevant planning instruments, was ruled out of order, Mayor Owen, on the basis that we were told that it may breach the City's model litigants' obligations. The City does not appear to have a model litigant policy, and District Court wager in WADC 35 of 2018 stated that the City of Stirling is not a model litigant and it does not pretend to be one. With that in mind, and I can't now mention the copious amounts of money the City was happy to expend chasing a rates bill that had already been paid in the District Court, I must re-ask the question, why will the City not allow the full Council the opportunity to decide if defending its right to control and apply its own planning schemes and policies, and indeed its community, by considering Councillor Farrelly's motion?
Thank you. I base the decision to rule that out of order based on the information I received from City officers, and I'll get Mr Rodich to provide you some more information on that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Mr Wheeler, for the question. The City officers are comfortable with the recommendations within the Responsible Authority report. In my view, and the view of the Planning Department, there are no questions of law in regards to this application, and therefore we are comfortable that legal advice is not needed.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr Wheeler. Kim Hamilton. Oh. Paige Palfrey. No. If these people have submitted questions, they will be published in the minutes with their responses, so you will be able to read those. Samara Kemp.
Samara Kemp, Karrinyup.
Thank you.
It's a bit futile, but I'll ask anyway, because a few of us are asking the same or similar questions.
Sure.
You know, it's not just about, you know, if you'll obtain legal advice, but it's also about legal representation that we believe is required at the next JDAP, put it bluntly, okay? And also if yourself or the lawyers would then make the deputation on behalf of the elected council at the next JDAP is quite something that we all are very strongly, you know, feeling about right now.
Thank you. And look, whilst I do understand your frustration, I think, you know, certainly the community has made it very clear over the past several months. We are comfortable that the City's Planning Department and their RAR covers it. And certainly when the RAR comes to Council, Council will decide if myself or another councillor represents the City and their viewpoints to the JDAP.
And just as a side note, the KRRD back in its early days even considered a whip round to try and pay for our own legal representation at the JDAP. That's how strongly we do feel for it. So we'll probably continue to look into that and ask further questions regarding it.
Sure.
And also my second question, with reference to item 14.3 tonight, why is Council not convened, or will Council consider convening a working group to provide guidance to the state government and the WAPC on the expectations of the community and the City of Stirling for current and future planning of the Caranet Regional Centre?
Thank you. Mr Roddish.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Ms Kemp, for your question. Next week at the Planning and Development Committee, we have prepared a report looking at the planning for the Caranup Activity Centre, and through that report we'll look at what are the options for Council going forward in the visioning exercise, and then we'll talk to the points you've raised there.
Okay.
So that will be discussed next Tuesday, so welcome you to come along and have a look.
Okay,
I can also confirm, Ms Kemp, that we did follow up, and we have asked for requested a meeting with the Minister, and I can confirm I do have a meeting with the Minister coming up in the next 2 weeks to talk about planning issues.
Great, thank you.
Judy Lundy.
Judy Lundy, Caranup. As Council will be aware, the City of Stirling's Strategic Community Plan 2018 to 2028, reviewed in 2020, articulates how the community's vision and objectives will be achieved as required by the Integrated Planning Framework. Given the widespread opposition to Caranup West residential development by residents of Caranup, can the Mayor please explain how the City will be able to achieve Objective B 1.1, plan to create unique and livable neighbourhoods and places that meet community need, and in particular the performance measure satisfaction with services and facilities in local neighbourhoods, without undertaking all possible actions to prevent the development proceeding, including obtaining legal advice on any legal implications of approving the Caranup West development application contrary to the requirements of the relevant planning instruments?
Thank you for that. And look, obviously some of that has already been answered. The Council has been committed to support the community and not necessarily stop development, but certainly undertake to make sure the development is of a scale that's expected in the vision for the community, the local community, and for the City of Stirling. And we'll continue to do this, and that's why the RAR was presented as it was.
Thank you.
Andre Dines.
Andre Dines, Caranup. Good evening, Mayor and Councillors. I'm sorry for the long-winded questions. At the recent May JDAP, both AMP and Row Group representatives advised that they had been in ongoing discussions with the City since 2019 and made representations that at no time during those discussions did the City raise any issues or concerns regarding the proposed high-rise towers, despite the significant non-conformance with both the existing planning scheme and policies. In fact, the design review panel minutes from the very first meeting indicated that the City supported it, or at least that's what the 3 independent JDAP members appeared to have interpreted. The City's RAR strongly outlines the issues with the proposed high-rise development. However, the assertions from both the applicants and its consultants and the independent members of JDAP was that the City actually supported it from the outset, and it was now too late to raise issues with the high-rise proposal at this late stage. Can the CEO or Mayor please explain why the City did not raise and document its concerns at this earliest point with the applicant and its consultants?
Sure. Mr Roddish.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Mr Dines. I've probably got a long-winded answer for you. Through the pre-lodgement process, the planning team will not undertake a full assessment and advise whether a proposal meets the City's planning framework or not. A full assessment of the proposal is undertaken when a formal development application is lodged with the City. Furthermore, in the pre-lodgement submission, there was insufficient information and details provided to be able to undertake any form of planning assessment. This pre-lodgement process occurred prior to the formal lodgement of the Caranup West development application in July last year. Once the development application was lodged, however, a planning assessment was undertaken, which included comments from internal business units, external state agencies, and the outcomes of public consultation. Following the city's assessment, the city advised the applicant via its request for information letter dated the 11th of September that it did not support the proposed development and requested amended plans to address a number of items, including, but not limited to, the height, bulk and scale of the proposed development. This position was reaffirmed to the applicant by the city in its second request for information letter dated the 23rd of December 2020 in response to the amended plans and information received by the applicant. So in terms of documenting any view on the matter, that was established as part of those two requests for further information letters, and the city clearly articulated that it did not support those key elements of the development. There was never a stage where we supported the development, and that is consistent with our RAR.
Thank you. May I suggest in the subsequent RAR it addresses that, because it did go back to the 2019 discussions? Thank you. Okay. During the recent May JDAP meeting, independent member Mr John Syme was very critical of the city in that the city was aware of the applicant's long-held intentions to build high-rise apartments on the site for a long time, yet the city had not progressed the necessary changes to the statutory planning framework to accommodate them. There was also a reliance on the work undertaken by the city and the applicant in 2014 and 2015, which was never formally submitted or progressed. In considering the current application, Mr Syme was of the view that the neighbouring residential properties currently zoned R20 would all be rezoned to at least R100, and that this would all happen very quickly. Could the CEO and the Mayor please confirm if the JDAP members have the discretion or the authority to rezone properties not subject to the application, or make decisions to approve the subject application based on a potential future rezoning of neighbouring properties which may or may not occur, or can rely on those preliminary draft planning documents prepared in 2014 and 15 but never formally progressed? Surely this is not proper and orderly planning and outside the jurisdiction of the JDAP members.
The quick answer is you are correct. I was certainly present at the JDAP when those comments were made. I think 8 stories was talked about next door to some of those local community members. We'll certainly take this up at the following JDAP.
Thank you. Is the city concerned that the 3 independent JDAP members appear to have little understanding of what was or what was not approved for the subject site in 2015? In fact, the applicant's consultants and the city seem to have trouble identifying or clarifying the subsequent changes at the meeting. It appears that despite the very thorough RAR, the JDAP members had not fully read it, understood it, or considered it. Yet 2 of the 3 members were willing to approve the current application. Can the CEO or Mayor please advise what the city is going to do to ensure that it avoids the mistakes of poor planning decisions and precedents, especially those associated with the legacy of the premature planning approval in 2015? Had the proper planning process been followed then, we would not be in this position. The Karrinyup residents and ratepayers request the city do all that it can to represent them at the highest levels to ensure proper and orderly planning be done first, in accordance with State Planning Policy 7.2, rather than this being prematurely approved by JDAP, which would again leave the residents and ratepayers in a compromised position of again having to try and retrofit a planning solution, which in this case will be impossible.
Thank you, Mr Dines, and yes, you have the city's commitment that they will do all they can do.
Thank you.
Dave Holder from Corrine.
Evening everyone, I'm Dave Holder, resident of Hispano Place in Corrine, which has recently been annexed into a car park for Corrine Senior High School. In our correspondence with council and our ward councillors, there's been indications that there's been ongoing discussions with Corrine Senior High School and the Education Department. Do we have any progress or lack thereof, or any kind of information you can share with us?
Sure. Mr Littleton.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you for the question. In response to those concerns, we've certainly conducted regular inspections of the area. We can confirm that there absolutely is some congestion in those local streets, but what we would say is that the vast majority are parking legally. the city, state government, and look, we are certainly looking at having a meeting with the local school, Corrine, and we're just waiting on confirmation as to when that meeting will happen. So we are certainly pushing to have that meeting as quickly as we can, so we can look at longer term solutions for the area.
Just one more quick.
Sure.
Is that just going to involve the school? Or would the education department be involved in all this? Are they even aware?
Look, the education department, the school, the local members, and the ward councillors are all or will all be engaged and invited to that meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Alan Morse. Just your name and address, thanks.
Yeah, Alan Morse from the once peaceful street, Francis Avenue, Karrinyup. First question, can you please advise on the current status of the activity centre structure plan now being prepared somewhat belatedly for the Karrinyup Shopping Centre redevelopment site?
Yes, Mr. Rodich.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Morse, for the question. As I've stated earlier, a report is being prepared for next week's Plan Development Committee seeking support to undertake a planning process for the Karrinyup Activity Centre. That report will discuss a number of options, one of which would be a structure plan process, a visioning exercise, and we'll go through those steps. But that report will detail, the future planning and how we think that should occur.
And would that consider public consultation again, or would you consider that's already been done?
It would consider.
Absolutely would consider public consultation as part of the electors meeting. A community reference group will be recommended to be established as part of that visioning exercise.
Thank you. Second question, what is the expected completion date for that plan?
Mr. Rodich.
Mr. Masters, there's no, in the report we will give a time frame depending on which process the council want to go. That will depend on what is the end date of that process. Look, like we all know now, we need to get this right, and it's critical that we go through a formal process and make sure the community, landowners, businesses are all involved in this process from the start. So there won't be a hard date in there, but it will give some periods of time of when we expect the planning for this area to meet certain stages.
Last question, what significance do you think that plan will have to the current JDAP consideration for the high-rise towers proposed for the Karrinyup Shopping Centre redevelopment site and the now proposed relocation of the BP station onto my street?
Yep. Mr. Rodich.
Not the answer you want, Mr. Musk, but none. But that is not a bad thing in terms of the JDAP considering how this development would fit into a future plan, because there is no future plan. So I say none, but that may be advantageous for the city and the community when we respond back to the JDAP on the further information requested.
Thank you. And I echo the comments earlier about the RAR work. We believe it was extremely good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Morse. Peter Ellis. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Peter Ellis from Corrine. Good evening, councillors, all staff and fellow ratepayers. Can you please advise where the extra over 160 new full-time employees who commenced employment in 2018-19 and 2019 and 20 provide services in which divisions?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ms. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Ellis. I'll provide that in detail in writing, but there will be an element of that would be the casual conversions that we talked about last time, but I'll provide that all in writing to you.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Can you please advise how many people are employed in Parks and Sustainability Department, particularly?
Yes, we can. We'll provide you that in writing.
Thank you very much.
161.
Oh, hang on, this was good. Mr. Littleton's sharp tonight. Here we go.
Sorry? What, 161?
161, Mr. Ellis.
161. Thank you very much.
Well done, Mr. Littleton.
Round of applause. Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry. Why is it, with the expenditure of $100 million, $722,424 on staff expenditures, why is the performance report, which lists all the employees in each division and the actual costs of each division, not listed in the 2019-2020 annual report, please?
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Ellis. We did change the format of that for the annual report, but we are looking at the 2021 report to bring that actual spend information in as well as the budget.
That make me very happy. Thank you, councillors. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Ellis. Roland Hadley. Evening.
Good evening, Roland Hadley, Woodlands. In the same vein, at a recent council meeting, I asked why $32,864 was spent on vehicle parts and repairs. The reply given stated that it was for a new Mitsubishi Triton utility and not actually vehicle parts and repairs. On May the 3rd, 3 payments were made of $66,000, $104,000 and $135,000 were paid to John Hughes, which are also costed to vehicle parts and repairs. Therefore, can the ratepayers presume, or successfully predict that these amounts related to the purchase of new vehicles and not actually parts and repairs? This is not the 3rd or 4th time that this miscoding, deliberate or otherwise, has occurred, and I'm sure the ratepayers would welcome a clear explanation.
Yes. I knew what you were going to do. Miss Hawkins.
I knew that you would.
Ms Hawkins, can you provide a response, please?
Thank you through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, thanks, Mr. Hadley, and certainly from your last question, we looked at John Hughes and that has been recategorised in the accounts payable system, so you'll see that as new vehicles moving forward.
Is that a promise?
That's a promise.
Thank you.
Well picked up, Mr Hadley.
My second question, I also asked at that meeting what $991,000, which was costed to construction, materials and services related to. We heard it referred to the Stevenson Highway project. However, how would ratepayers be aware of this fact if only briefest information is given? I know that another small amount of $909,000 has been paid, also classed as construction, materials and services. Again, specific details not provided. What exactly does this relate to?
Thank you. And I'm assuming the small amount was a little bit of sarcasm, Mr Hadley?
Surely not.
Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Hadley. As you know, that was for Densford Civil in terms of the contractor. I appreciate that you raised this at the EGM, and the information we provided there is that we do batch process these payments, so we're unable to provide that level of detail without manually going through each invoice, and that's why we use the NPNs.
Yes, we know that, but exactly what did the $909,000 and also the $991,000 relate to?
Thanks. So Densford Civil, but we'll provide you the detail in writing, Mr Hadley.
Thank you. As the CEO has a legal requirement to ensure full details are provided, as per Regulation 13, paragraphs 1 and 2, through the Chair, Mr Mayor, would the CEO say he has met this standard?
Oh, let's ask him. Mr CEO.
Through the Chair, yes.
There you go, Mr Hadley.
Thank you. Third and last question.
Hang on.
Bear with
Hang
me.
on. For someone who's very good at figures, Mr Hadley. Come on, bring it on.
It's written down here, so...
Okay, yes.
The motion that I proposed that the Finance Department supply full detailed information in the chart of accounts was dismissed. Apparently, it would allegedly create substantially more work for the allegedly under-resourced department. As 95% of the invoices are self-explanatory, i.e. volunteer payments, gas, water, bond refunds, stationery, provisions, electricity, temporary labour, bulk fuel, etc., it remains questionable, if that is the case with the Finance Department, If this section is understaffed, surely it's a matter for the CEO to resolve as quickly as possible. And again, through the Chair, Mr Mayor, will the CEO pass comment?
Mr CEO?
Yeah, through the Chair, we try to be prudent in the number of staff that we have on the establishment dealing with priorities. So currently, we're not understaffed, as in my opinion.
Thank you, Mr Hadley. Pasco Petrino, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Pasco Petrino. I live in Chelmsford Loop, Careen. My question follows on from Dave Holder's question with regard to the parking in the neighbouring streets around Careen Senior High School. In response to the question, I heard a response saying that there's some congestion. Well, I put it to you, there's a lot of congestion, not some. I also heard that the students are legally parking, maybe legally parking, but extremely dangerous and hazardous. And this is what I want to impress the city about. The students are parking there around the neighbouring streets. It's dangerous and hazardous. There's no need for me to really emphasise how dangerous this is. You only have to have a resident have a heart attack and an ambulance.
Sir, sorry, I just need you to get to a question.
You need to hear the context, Mr Mayor. Okay, it's extremely dangerous. A resident can have a heart attack. An ambulance cannot get there. I've got photos from this morning taken in my street in Chelmsford Loop, and my partner could barely get through. So my question follows on: when and how will the city address this hazardous situation? I put it to you, a meeting with the principal of Careen Senior High School will be insufficient. It has to be taken higher. Mr Mayor, the city has a responsibility to keep our streets safe, keep our residents safe. At the moment, it's not. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Petrino. And I can tell you that, look, I'm very aware the ward councillors have been working with the officers, and we've been trying to get meetings with the right people. We will continue to do that. I was talking to some residents earlier about it, and I've committed that I'll come down with the ward councillors and meet with the residents on site and have a look at your concerns as well.
Thank you.
Peter Peebles, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good evening, councillors and public. My name is Peter Peebles. I live in Hispano Place in Careen, and like Pasco and Dave before me, I'm extremely concerned about the safety aspects of the students clogging our streets. And our streets are so narrow, they were never designed to be car parks. And I fully endorse the comments by the two previous speakers relating to this issue. So I've got a couple of questions. The preamble to this I'll keep very brief. According to the City of Stirling's parking policies, secondary schools, there has to be a minimum number of car parks allocated. My figures suggest that Careen Senior High School requires a minimum right now of 504 parking spaces according to Council's policy. Acknowledging that the government owns the land, therefore the state government, i.e. Education Department, can thumb its nose at the council and not necessarily have any credibility in abiding by council's regulations. So my question is, when you meet with the representatives of the Education Department, will you do your very best endeavours to impose your views upon them that what they have done to the residents of Careen by thumbing their nose at them with respect to parking on site is totally unacceptable and is leading to very, very dangerous situations?
Yes, we will.
The number of people who have said to me that they've nearly had an accident because they can't back out of their driveway safely because they can't see. 2 rubbish trucks from the city yesterday had to deviate from their routes because they couldn't get up the streets. And that is another issue. Second question, Mr Mayor, we've had lots of correspondence re the parking between ourselves, i.e. the residents, councillors Perkoff and Hatton as Hammersley, and some communication with Councillor Ree. Mr GMOff will be sick of seeing my name pop up on emails in his inbox. But we're getting to the stage now that this is getting pretty serious stuff from our point of view. So my question is, as Mayor and as a CEO and other councillors, do you agree that this is an extremely serious issue that needs addressing now, especially from a safety aspect? Because if, heaven forbid, there is an accident that will cause a death or a serious accident, then I'll be the first one knocking on your doors and saying, I told you so. This is serious and it needs addressing.
Mr Peebles, as I've committed to, that this is some... Excuse me, sir.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you've asked for a response.
Sorry, my apologies, Mr Mayor.
I understand your frustration, but what we need to do is assess the situation in a sensible manner. And I understand when you live in areas, it can be extremely frustrating. But it's very important that the officers understand the issues, which they are trying to do at the moment, and ensure that any ramifications of any restrictions or calming situations in terms of traffic or parking don't then just push that issue onto another street or further down. So it is, whilst there seems like some simple solutions, it's not that easy. And we work with schools right around the city, and there's plenty of them. And believe me, there's plenty of serious issues out there with schools and their parking. So we do take it seriously. And you have our assurance that we'll come and meet with you on site, and the officers will continue to work with the school to find a solution to this.
I would welcome that response for the officers who are looking at this to come and talk to residents, because we're the ones who really know what's going on.
Sure, we understand that.
Thank you.
Arnold Davies. Lucky last on my list, unless I've missed anyone.
Arnold Davies,
Evenings.
Carrinup. Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the gallery. Why doesn't the City of Stirling have their rangers required to patrol regularly around the building sites to ensure there is no parking in the centre of the road reserves? It's a common practice to see trucks, even bulldozers, parked in the middle of Francis Avenue in a dangerous manner, and the rangers appear only to respond to complaints. Even today I had to go out, and when I got home there's a truck with a ramp down in the middle of the road. Another day I come home and there's a truck full of bricks in the middle of the road, and they're just unloading. Quite often there's trucks parked across the footpath. People with prams can't get past. People with gophers can't get past.
So the simple answer is the rangers do that. And whilst it doesn't appear they're there all the time, there's obviously, it's a big city and there's other things to patrol. But I can tell you, you know, whilst we're trying to balance the fact that there's a new shopping centre with a very busy weekend, rangers and security were there, and there were several warnings and dozens of infringements issued for those very things.
There's two houses being built on 56 Francis Avenue. Now that's been going on for ages, and I've had reason to get on to the ranger to come and shift a vehicle off my verge. He's gone down to the building site, spoken to the person to get them to remove the vehicle, but at the time there's a truck parked across the footpath and he's done nothing about it. I had to ring up again to get them to come out and shift the truck.
Sure, and I don't know that situation, but I can tell you that not only were they out there warning and infringing, but it's also, again, it's a balance. And, you know, this council certainly isn't about revenue raising from parking, especially with tradies and people out there trying to earn a living. We'll try everything we can to have a balanced approach to ensure people are educated and give them a chance.
I think if more infringement notices were issued, it'd be a big way of solving the problem.
Sure, but again, the balance is, sir, you know, when our rangers and our parking inspectors put those tickets on windscreens, they're not sure if it's a single parent who's overstayed a shopping centre, a tradie who's doing the wrong thing, or a staff. So they try to have a balanced approach.
they know that they're the construction workers.
Yes.
And-
So, Mr. Davies, we're happy to continue to patrol that area. But again, I will just tell you that, you know, it's not a hardline approach to go out and fine everyone.
Well,
But if you've got concerns, let us know and we'll spend more time patrolling that area.
I
which you
shouldn't have
done.
to keep on being an angry person because the council are not doing their job. Has the City of Stirling finalised their plans for the redevelopment of the Karrinyup Library site? If not, will they now rescind the redevelopment proposal made in 2015?
Oh, I haven't got a straightforward answer for you there. Mr. Quirk, have you got anything to add?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, the City has not progressed or finalised a redevelopment plan for the library and community centre site.
Are they still going to sell it off?
Not at this stage.
No. But
There is no plan to sell it off at this stage.
Has the City of Stirling required the payment of monies from BGC for the fencing off of the footpath on the western side of Francis Avenue, Karrinyup, while the apartments are being built? Because that fence initially was put up for a development of the shopping centre. Now it's the development of a set of apartments, so it should be a different set of monies paid.
I'm not sure. We'll have to find that information out and respond to you in writing.
Thank you.
Sorry, Mr. Davies.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, everyone. Mr. Wheeler. This is very unusual.
So, sorry, Mayor, I'm just showing how well the interactive aspect of the live streaming is working. You mentioned earlier that you would be talking to the Minister about Karrinyup, and Kieran from Sunsets Not Scrapers has just requested, will you be able to bring up Scarborough in that meeting as well?
I didn't want to say it in front of this crowd, but that was actually number one on the list.
Oh, thank you.
I'm honest with you. Yes.
Good man, thank you.
Got it, Kieran. Thanks. Just to show there is someone watching at home. All right. Thanks for your patience, everyone. We'll now move on to item 8, which is applications for leave of absence. Councillor Chris Hatton has requested a leave of absence from the 3rd of August to the 15th of August. Are there any other requests, councillors, for leave of absence? No indication. Just before I move on, I have also received another disclosure of interest from Councillor Joe Ferranti for item 12.1 WF1 for the parking and security fleet vehicles, an impartial interest as he has stocks in lithium mine in Australia. How's he? Sorry, and I will just backtrack to item 8. I do need a mover and a seconder for the leave of absence for Councillor Chris Hatton. Move Councillor Migdale, seconded Councillor Lagan. If I can just have a show of hands quickly, councillors. Thank you. That's unanimous. Thank you. And are you asking for something? Are you? Okay. You're a little bit eager down here, councillor. So item 9, confirmation of minutes. Councillors, can I please have a mover and a seconder to accept the council minutes of 29th of June? Councillor Migdale, you move those minutes. Councillor Spagnolo is seconded. Again, can I just have a show of hands, councillors? And we have 4. We have Councillor Spagnolo, Thornton, Boothman, Sargent, Proud, Perkoff, Lagan, Sandri, Ferranti, Migdale and myself. And against, we have 2 councillors. Councillor Farrelly and Councillor Ree voting against the minutes.
Can I just say the reason why?
I think you should briefly say the
Okay.
reason why. It's highly unusual.
There was a request for some memorial, a plaque, whatever you'd like to call it, to
A quick reason.
a Scarborough identity who did a lot of good community work, John Foley, which doesn't seem to have been recorded in that manner. So that's
It's irrelevant to the minutes of the last meeting. It wasn't
no,
raised
it
at the
was
last.
it was discussed. It has to be in the minutes if it's discussed.
It wasn't discussed. It hasn't come up at any council meeting, councillor, so I don't know what you're talking about. Can we get clarity through governance? Has there been anything to do with plaques? I do know what you're talking about, and it's entirely separate to the...
Is I was somewhere else.
That's fine, but
yeah,
I think I would suggest you
Mr.
read the
Mayor.
agenda of the last meeting and find that item.
Mr. Mayor,
No, we're going to move on. Item 10, announcements by the presiding member. I would like to now go to Councillor Boothman, and invite you to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Can I just ask you to turn your microphone off?
Some time now I've been of a mind that I was not going to contest the next election and would be standing down. In March this year, my wife, we looked at a few properties down south and we identified a property south of Mandurah which my wife was keen to acquire, which we did. Subsequently put our home in Mirrabooka on the market, and that recently settled and we've moved out. So basically under the Local Government Act, either I'd then have to look at leasing a place to stay in the City of Stirling or else stand down from council. So that's what I'm announcing tonight, is that after 27 years and 3 months, because I was elected in May in 1994 to council, I'll be standing down. Since I was first elected to council, there's been very significant change, both in the actual structure of council, but also how councils operate and the requirements on councillors. I've enjoyed those 27 years, and I very deeply appreciate that I've had the confidence of the electors within the Balga ward to continue to support my re-election year after year. And I've also, during this time, been very appreciated of the support of the elected members around the table, both the current and also the past elected members, and the staff in particular. And of recent years, Mr. Jardine, who basically came and took the role as CEO of the City of Stirling just a couple of months before I became Mayor in 2007. And again, I did 6 years service as Mayor, which I can assure you every other person who is not experienced is a very exacting role, and I don't tend to be your position at the moment, Mr. Mayor. But yes, definitely, it's got many rewarding things, but it's a 24 hours a day, 7 days a week situation, and yes, and it's very taxing on your life. So having said that, I should thank everybody then for the support, and I will be finishing my role as a councillor as of the 6th of August, this Friday. Thank you very much.
Councillor Boothman, wow. Look, I won't say a lot tonight because obviously the councillors know we are having a small function on Friday night with the community. There's been a lot of interest from the local community. Obviously over 27 years, Councillor Boothman, you've made a lot of friends in the community and supported a lot of them. So there's a small function just for your chance to be able to say goodbye to them and for them to be able to thank you for your service. I will just read a slight extract from the media statement that we issued today after hearing of this. Councillor Boothman has been a councillor of the Balga ward since 1994 and served as Mayor from 2007 to 2013, in addition to serving as Deputy Mayor from 2000 to 2001. During his over 27 years of service, that's extraordinary. Councillor Boothman contributed to the development of the city on almost every committee on council during that time. Before his role, he was a police officer, where he was also, and once he joined council, he was then awarded Walga Life membership. He's been awarded long and loyal service, and he's been awarded Distinguished Service Award from local government. Combined with his strong interest in community safety, sustainability and the environment, Councillor Boothman has also demonstrated outstanding and invaluable contribution to the Balga community and the local government sector. And if I can just finish on a personal note, I met Councillor Boothman well before I became Mayor, or even in fact a councillor, as a young lifesaver during his term as Mayor. And I know from the community aspect why he's so respected and probably loved by the community, and it's his genuine nature, a real gentleman in the community. And Councillor Boothman, you're certainly going to be missed by this council, and we wish you all the best for your future. I teared up a bit there, Councillor Boothman. A young. That's before you all broke me and I became an old lifesaver. Councillor Proud.
Can I say a brief few words?
Sure.
personally, and I guess for a lot of other councillors, some who are no longer here, my personal thanks to you. You've acted as a mentor. When I first got on in 07, that's when you became mayor for 3 terms. Your leadership, guidance and balance has been really appreciated. I'd like to say also, during Councillor Boothman's time as mayor, he also had to deal with the amalgamation process brought in by the Barnett government. And as well as everything else that he's done in his whole 27 years, in that 6-year period, that took up a big chunk of it, and it was absolutely massive for the amount of work involved in the amalgamation process, the stress with that, and, you know, waking up in the morning and knowing we've just lost another big chunk of our lands. And we looked at losing Wembley Downs, Woodlands, Inglewood and Mount Lawley, and an aquatic facility thrown into that. So that was a massive undertaking, a lot of stress to do the best for our residents, and we had a lot of groups from east and west and north and south that are all community trying to stay with Stirling. We had great support there, but you know, in the end it was going to be a government decision. However, we're very glad that it all sort of, the white flag got waved. But I really commend Councillor Boothman for that effort, as well as all the trials and tribulations that he's had as in the mayoral role, that a lot of us, I don't think, have seen so upfront and personal. So personal thanks, David.
Thank you. And with that, we'll move on now to item 11, which is unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. We'll now move on to the Community and Resource Committee items.
Am I allowed to have my announcements?
Sorry, Councillor Reid.
Yes.
I had my head down. Councillor Reid, you have an announcement?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
You're
I have
welcome.
a couple, actually. One is the passing of former councillor and Deputy Mayor Peter Rose. It's with sadness that I advise that the passing of former councillor and Deputy Mayor Peter Rose. Peter served as the City of Stirling councillor from 1974 to 1983, from 1983 to 97, and from 1999 to 2011. He also served as Deputy Mayor from 1996 and 1997, and from 2007 to 2009, for both the Hammersley and the Trigg wards. Peter made very many contributions to the city, and particularly to the Stirling players, which if it wasn't for Councillor Rose, the Stirling players wouldn't have been able to relocate and stay where they are today. Councillor Rose was also very active with regard to the North Beach Jetty and various other things in Hammersley, in particular with regard to Reed Highway. He spans a long time with the City of Stirling in different locations. He was very much a true gentleman, and I hope we can acknowledge him accordingly with respect. And the City sends its heartfelt condolences to his wife Marie and his daughters Teresa, Bernadette, Jane, Judith and Jeanette.
Thank you for that, Councillor.
I'd also like to acknowledge that John Foley, who was a very active person in our community, passed away recently. He was not only a sergeant at Nollamara, he was also a sergeant at Scarborough, and he was instrumental in starting the Police and Citizens Youth Club to help get children off the streets and keep them. He's also the longest serving volunteer at St Vincent de Paul with 71 years, which I doubt that it will ever be replaced. And he was a stalwart in the community, not only in height, but in also his passion. He was a very strong member of the Scarborough and Districts Process Association, and he fought consistently to stop more development on the Doubleview primary school site to ensure that the community had somewhere for their children to play with the increase in density developments.
Thanks for those announcements, Councillor Reid. I will now move on to Community and Resource Committee meeting. Item 12.1 ES1 is required to be pulled out as the item was referred to Council. Councillors, are there any other items that you wish to pull out? Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. 12.1 WF1.
Thank you. Is there any others? If not, I will go to item 12.1 ES1, congestion in Scarborough redevelopment area. The item was referred to council. Councillor Migdale, this actually, whilst you're chair, I think this came from a motion specifically from Councillor Farrelly. So if it's okay with you, I might just go to her as it hasn't been dealt with by committee. Councillor Farrelly, your motion.
Look, I was. Is that on? It is on, isn't it? Thanks. Yes. In regard to the motion I was going to put, I have also discussed.
So we just to be clear though, we have no motion on the table. So what is your motion?
My motion at the moment is that we let it stand because I just want to explain.
No, but you can't explain anything. We haven't even got a motion on the table.
Oh.
So what is the motion that you want to stand?
Let me just get on to.
We might have it. Is the original one that went to committee? Or is it the city? So the officer's recommendation was that the city does not progress the provision of parking abatements.
Page 12.
So is that yours or do you have a different recommendation?
Look, I'll leave it with, but I really want to give the reason for why I support option 1.
You can't give any reason. There's no motion. So we still don't know what you want to put up.
The motion?
So why don't you take a seat, Councillor? I'll go back to committee. We'll get the chair's recommendation, then you can debate it.
All
if you
right,
wish.
okay, thanks.
Councillor Migdale, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I would like to move option 1, please, on page 12
If you
of
could
the
read it
agenda.
out. Yeah, if you could read it out. Sorry, I just don't have it in front of me, so I'm not sure what we're moving.
That the city does not progress the provision of parking embayments within verges of secondary streets within the Scarborough redevelopment area. This is on the basis of the disadvantages listed earlier in the report.
And a seconder for that motion, please. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sandri. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Farrelly. So, Councillor Migdale?
Reserve.
Thank you. Councillor Sandri? Okay. Councillor Farrelly. So, that's a motion in black up on the screen, so you can debate against it if you'd like.
I am going to, in a way, debate against it because but I understand that through the Planning and Development Committee are going to have a report on the normalisation process for Scarborough redevelopment area next week. I have also spoken to the Director of Infrastructure and the manager involved with the considerations made in that report. And until the normalisation process and report is brought before the Planning and Development Committee, I feel that it's probably a bit preemptive to make a statement on what is going to occur in that Scarborough area. However, I'm looking forward to the fact that this report will talk on the process of incorporating the planning framework for the area and the developer contribution plan into the city's local planning scheme. And part of the development contribution plan considers streetscape upgrades, and that will be considered for East or West Coast Highway, which is the residential area, which is most impacted by lack of development on the streetscape over the last 30 years.
So can I just get some,
I
understand what you're trying to say. Can I just get clarification? Because the motion currently up is quite final. It says we will not progress any provision of parking embayments. And what you're saying is preemptive. So can I suggest, I might just get clarification.
That's what I wasn't sure. Thank you.
But it sounds to me like you want to just hold this over so it's included with part of the normalisation. Is that the intent? Yes, it is. So if I can get from governance, are we better off just to either withdraw the motion or to just hold it over and be included? Can we have a referral that it's held over and included as part of the normalisation? Mr Littleton?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, it might be best if we just put the words "at this time" at the end of this resolution, so that that we can deal with any potential outcomes through the normalisation process.
Yep. So are you happy with that, Councillor Farrelly, as an amendment?
I probably would still vote against it because I feel that I hate to have I know at this time, but at this time could be a very long-winded at this time.
Sure. The intent of what you debated was all right, but
but
I still think you should move this in as an amendment because we can test it with a mover and seconder, and at least that way when they're voting, it's not final. So Councillor Migdale and Councillor Sandri are happy. That way it's just not final, so it helps you with what you're trying to do. Yep.
But in
didn't continue.
terms of the amount of work that's been done before in the last 30 years, I probably will still vote against it, but it's not that I don't appreciate the discussion I had with the Director of Infrastructure and with the manager, Paul
Sure.
Guillemot. I thought they were very explanatory, very helpful, and they actually prepared quite a detailed report. So I do appreciate that.
Sure,
Thank you.
understood. Councillor Ree?
Well, two ways. One, clarification first.
Sure.
Right, clarification is redevelopment area at this time and can be reviewed at a later date would probably not give it the ending or be reviewed.
No,
as
I
part
don't
of the
think,
project.
the intent is clear. There's no misintent, and Councillor Farrelly has had talks with officers, so she's aware of how it will progress. So it doesn't need any more clarification.
So you don't think we need to hold it over to just make sure it gets into
No,
that
I think
project?
we've had the commitment from the officers that will form part of that normalisation process and the discussion that comes back.
Okay.
I think everyone's happy with that. All right, so is there anyone else who'd like to debate this item? Councillor Migdale, do you need to close? Happy to close it? All right, so I will put that. Move Councillor Migdale, seconded Councillor Sandri. Go to the vote, please. Thank you, councillors, and that is carried with councillors voting, all councillors voting for it. Councillor Farrelly, as indicated, has voted against it. I'll now go to item 12.1 WF1, parking and security fleet vehicles to be electric vehicles by 2024. Councillor Migdale as chair of the committee.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will move the officer's recommendation per committee.
Sure. Councillor Lagan, you're seconding with a question or?
I just wanted to make a quick comment if I could.
Sure. Is there anyone opposed? In that case. I think I'll chair this meeting. Thanks, Councillor Ree. And Councillor Migdale, would you like to open?
Nothing at this time, thank you, Mayor.
Thanks. Councillor Lagan? Just a
Yeah,
quick
thank
comment.
you, Mr Mayor. Look, I just wanted to make some quick comment. Can I say thank you for the report to the officers, to Rick and to Director Littleton. Very good report. I note the vehicles that are listed. This has been a long process for the city, but an important process in a changing environment of vehicle usage. I just wanted to make a very quick comment by way of maybe progressing the comment that was made on page 26, that the West Australian Government has not yet finalised what qualifications are required to maintain EVs. And that led me to do some reading into the West Australian Government's climate change policy and their attitude towards EVs. And I note that from the Grattan report into EVs, the New South Wales Government has announced that it will give a $3,000 rebate to the first 25,000 EV vehicles sold in New South Wales, under a cost of $68,000. I note in our report that the table of vehicles starts at around the $45,000 mark and goes down to the Tesla vehicle, which is quite expensive. What's interesting in this marketplace or in this space is that the luxury vehicle tax will also be amended in the near future. So what I'd like to, the only comment I'd like to make is that I'm very glad that we moved to the purchase of vehicles, the notional and then final instalment of charging stations for vehicles, but also that I hope that this action by councils like the City of Stirling will move the West Australian Government to the same position of the New South Wales Government, and we can look at getting rebates for the purchase of vehicles, especially given that the mining in Western Australia, and even at the Diggers and Dealers conference this week, has discussed heavily the sale and the progress of mining into rare earth minerals and to lithium, and this goes towards developing this sector, and I think it's something that the state government needs to show some leadership on, just as this council has done.
Thank you. So let's move Councillor Migdale, seconded Councillor Lagan. I will put that to the vote, councillors. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Now, whilst nothing else was pulled out, I do have to make a note from committee, and I know Councillor Caddy had asked for this, but there is an alt-rec memo that is attached to your agendas this evening, so I might go to you, Councillor Migdale. It was information asked to be added on to the initial motion. So item 12.1 F2, Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I would like to move the alt rec as supplied in the memo, please.
Yeah, we just added some more information about the library services. Seconded, Councillor Sargent. Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will put that to the vote. And we've just got one more, I think. Councillor Thornton, just your vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And that brings us to the balance of reports. Councillor Migdale, would you like to move the balance of reports, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the balance of reports, please.
And seconded by Councillor Sargent. If you can go to the vote, councillors. And we're waiting for Councillor Spagnolo, please. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Members of the gallery and viewers at home, please be advised that the remainder of the Community and Resource Committee items have been adopted by exception resolution. Councillors will now continue with the items on the agenda. It brings us to item 13, reports for consideration in accordance with 4.24 of the meeting procedures, Local Law 2009, item 13.1, 2022 committee and council meeting schedule. Motion, Councillor Sandri.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation on page 63. And question, is this where we put in the time change or will that be under local law?
Under here, I believe it would be. Yes.
Well, can I please move an alternative recommendation then? That
Sure.
may have been prepared by governance earlier for discussion.
Yep. Yes, you can. Here it is.
I need to read it out.
Yeah, just read it out.
So just
Yep.
in terms of the addition, to number 1, it's noting the following amendment. All council meetings to commence at 6:30 p.m. with the exception of the final council meeting of the year, which is to commence at 5:30 p.m. Currently, they start at 7.
Yeah, so the only move is to bring council meetings forward half an hour. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Migdale. Is there anyone opposed to that? Councillor Ree, or a question or opposed?
The reason it went to 7 o'clock is because people said they couldn't get to 6:30. And yes, I think we perhaps, because we're actually changing, it's not an amendment, it's actually a change that went out to the public. So that concerns me that it's actually not an amendment. However...
Okay, so you're debating, so let's go back to... That's fine, you can debate it, but I think it's fair if we're going to debate it to get Councillor Sandri to talk us the reasoning why.
Mr Mayor, maybe I'll just ask a question before I commence debate. Is it required to advertise the time change? And have we previously advertised the 7 p.m. time?
Sure. Mr Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There is a requirement under the Local Government Act to publish the time and date and location of all council and committee meetings for the following year. That is the purpose of this report. It's open to council to set any meeting time, acknowledging that it has been 7 p.m. for council meetings at Stirling for some time. There will be extensive advertising of any change to the meeting time, and we'll make sure that the public is well aware of the change.
Councillor Sandri.
Thank you. Look, I think in terms of the time, I think I think 6:30 p.m. is probably appropriate. 7 p.m. is a bit late, and if people are coming here to ask public questions and they can timely get home to have dinner with their family, they don't tend to stay around for the agenda, particularly because we're live streamed now as well. So I think 6:30 p.m. is probably appropriate. I mean, if I benchmark it against other local governments in metro area, they vary. 4 p.m. starts in some councils. Some councils start at 6 p.m. There's actually, City of Perth has a lunchtime council meeting on a Tuesday or a Friday, I can't remember what at 2 o'clock, whatever it is. So everyone is varied in their approach. But I certainly think that our committee meetings are at 6 p.m. and that's actually when we require the public to come in and deputise. So I certainly think that the public should be amenable to the 6:30 p.m. based on the premise that to deputise, they need to get here for 6 p.m. So we're actually giving them that additional half an hour for the council meeting. And if we're going to publicise it extensively, then I think it should be sufficient. But I'm happy to hear debate and go from there.
Thanks, Councillor Migdale. You're happy? Councillor Ree?
Yes, look, I was bringing it up as a part of a governance issue, that people are expecting it to be 7 and now we're changing it to 6:30 without letting them know.
No.
I do
but that's not the
believe-
case.
Yep. Well, it is, because we're now changing it to 6:30, and if they'd realised it was...
But they
gonna be
will
7,
find out. This is the
now
next...
Yeah, they'll
Yeah,
find out, so they could
But I want to
appeal.
make it clear, there's no issue with governance. This is the first time you've seen the committee and council meeting dates for 2022.
I know.
And it is now
What
July
I'm saying is, if people
2021,
object-
August
If
2020.
people object to it, you know, let's not get petitions. If people come in and say they really, this is too difficult, I think we should listen to them. We perhaps need to change it. So that's my
Sure.
only comment. My second comment is that when I worked in local government, a lot of council meetings start at 9 o'clock in the morning. Some start at lunchtime. This was originally started at 5, then it went to 6, then it went to 7. And that was because of the public. And also a lot of people around the table were working and they had to get from work to here. So that's some of the reason why. So I don't have a problem. I will support it. I just think that we have to be mindful sometimes of the past of why things changed. And you know, we have to be prepared that if it's not going to, we have to change it back. The only other thing I was going to say is, could I find out why the audit committee went from Tuesday to a Monday, please?
Because we voted for it.
I want to know.
It's simple, councillor. This
No,
comes to
wait a
us every
minute.
year and you get to
We
choose.
voted for it because that's what the staff gave us to vote for. What I want to know is where in the staff, whoever made that in La La Land, wherever, decided that we would go from audit committees from Tuesdays to Mondays. Yes, we're in here and we're not given a choice. You approve it and it's in here. What I want to know is why did it get changed from a Tuesday to a Monday? What logic was it, please?
And I'm going to have to confirm my previous answer and say you have to check within your own head to find out the logic, because we were the ones that changed it. We're through this process.
Yeah, it came up
We are sitting here tonight deciding the process.
But it came up as a Monday on the calendar. It wasn't
It may have been,
discussed.
councillor, it may have been a recommendation.
Exactly.
And I'm guaranteed the logic is because we have committee meetings and council meetings every Tuesday. So it made sense to separate it, because any good meeting means you have to have a fresh mind, which I'm guessing is the same reason a councillor is trying to bring this meeting forward. If you'd like to change audit, are you happy with audit on a Monday, councillor?
No, I'd rather have it on the Tuesday like we used to have it before. And I didn't think that there was a major issue.
Well,
with
it's in this as Mondays. I think. Thanks, councillor. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to these? If not, I will go to councillor Sandri to close.
I'll just quickly say thanks for having a council meeting on my birthday. Did you want to?
Sorry, I'm trying to work out if councillor Ferranti wanted to speak.
Oh,
Put my hand up, Mr.
Sorry,
Mayor.
I didn't. It wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't clear. Sorry, councillor.
I just wanted to add quickly, if that's possible.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we're living in a modern time where we're actually televising this, and furthermore, a lot of the public can now lodge their questions online and have that read out on the night. So I think the 6:30 sounds better for everyone, and it's not so long night as we have experiencing. Thanks.
Sure. Now we'll go to councillor Sandri to close.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, sorry, councillor. They're all excited now. Councillor Spagnuolo, I'm just going to
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'll be very brief. I was just going to say that at the City of Stirling, it's been 7 o'clock ever since I can remember. But Councillor Ferranti and Councillor Sandri are very much on the money there, because from my point of view, times have changed. We are televising, as has been said. People's work habits have changed. People now work from home. There's more access to everything. And I guess at the end of the day, if it's not going to work, well, then what we can do is, we can change it back. So let's consider it as a trial for the time being. And if for whatever reason that needs to change, well, then it can be done in due course. But I think we just need to recognise that, what used to happen 20 years ago or 10 years ago, even 5 years ago, it doesn't happen. We have COVID happening at the moment. The fact that we stream our council meetings, I think is fantastic. And, whilst we might think there aren't a lot of people watching, I've actually been getting some considerable feedback from people saying that, they don't go to council meetings, but now we know what you do at the council meeting, which I think is quite interesting. So thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Fan club. Yeah. Councillor Sandri, now you may close debate.
Third time lucky. No, I was just saying thank you for having a council meeting on my birthday next year. It's much appreciated, provided that I'm re-elected.
We've spoilt the surprise, councillor. Yes.
And I do concur with the comments around the table. Bottom line is, if it doesn't work, we get considerable amount of objections. We'll change it back to 7, but let's just give it a go. Thank you.
Sure. And with that, closes debate. Move councillor Sandri, seconded councillor Migdale. With the amendment, I'll put that to the vote. All right, we've just got a couple to go. I've got Councillor Sandri and Ferrante to vote, please. Thank you. Yep. There you go. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I'll now go to item 13.2, the proposed meeting procedures, Local Law 2021, outcomes of advertising and the final adoption on page 78. Do I have a mover of a motion? Anyone? Councillor Farrelly?
Well, you can, look, I don't mind. Lisa can, it's an amendment to
I'm happy. So, councillors, if you wish to move an amendment, what I need is this, right? Because I look down there and this doesn't cut it, yeah? Because, so, it's Councillor Thornton, you've got an alternative, and so does Councillor Farrelly, I can see. So I'm happy to go to you, Councillor Thornton. Yep. Have they? Let's hear what you've got.
Yeah, after talking to Councillor Farrelly, I'm going to move the procedural motion to refer this over to another council meeting.
Okay, so that's a procedural to hold it over to a further council meeting, and your reason to hold it over?
Just the feeling is that we
Councillor
need
Ree, just wait.
more information, more time to absorb this and also ask questions.
Sure, you are aware it's gone through council and it's been out for advertising, so it's come back, yeah?
I am.
Yes, sure. Okay, so seconder, Councillor Ree. No, you can't have an amendment. It's a referral motion to hold it over. This is to hold it over to.
Just hold it over to the committee meeting, not the council meeting, please, because to allow the discussion on these changes and the comments that have been made. If it comes back to a council meeting, it's harder to have that debate.
Councillor Thornton, are you?
Yeah, happy with it.
To a committee meeting.
To a committee meeting.
Held on the.
It'll be the 24th of the 8th.
Sure. Sure, let's. Councillors, just take a seat, councillors. How about we get governance to help us out here? Yeah, but we're working on it. Mr. Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to point out that if we don't adopt the meeting procedures local law at the 17 August council meeting, we will need to induct the new council after the election in the old meeting procedures local law, and then wait for the new meeting procedures to be gazetted, and then re-induct them into a new meeting procedures local law, which is why we've suggested this time frame.
In fairness, Mr. Blanchard, there's not a lot of changes though. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so it can be done. So it's a procedural. So there's no debate. It's a procedural motion to hold it over. So, councillors, I'll put that to the vote.
Can I just ask one quick question?
Is it just a clarification?
Yeah, it is, Mr. Mayor. Given that it's been mentioned, this has been dealt with a number of times, could this not be put to the end of the meeting? My understanding, this is only two or three things that people wish to deal with, and deal with it at the end of the meeting.
Yeah, that's not for me to decide. It's been a procedural mode. So I'm aware that the councillors have had significant discussions about this during the day, and this is the way they wish to progress it. So, councillors, it's simple. It's a procedural. You don't get to debate it. You vote for it. If you wish to hold it, if you want to debate it, you vote against it. Just vote, please, councillors. Councillors, thanks. I know you are. I know exactly what you're doing. That motion is lost. Councillors, do you wish to move another motion? Councillor Sandri?
Can I please move the officer's recommendation?
Thank you. Councillor Migdale has seconded that. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Thornton. Councillor Sandri?
I'll reserve my debate because I just want to hear the debate. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Councillor Migdale?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a lot to say on this other than this has already come to council. We've had adequate opportunity to address this and talk to this and make any changes that we feel we need to make. So I see no valid reason for holding up this process at this time. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Thornton.
Yes, can I make a recommendation?
We have a
Well,
recommendation.
the third recommendation.
It would be an amendment.
Amendment.
So, yes.
For the amendment that I have put forward to be the third recommendation. The fourth, is it?
So it's the changes to number 1. Sorry. The councillor. It's an amendment, so I'll ask, can we have just the amendment up? I think this is, and can I have some clarification from Mr Blanchard what the implications of this are?
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Sorry, before I ask for a seconder for the amendment.
In the proposed meeting procedures local law, there are 2 changes, one to do with petitions and one to do with notice of motions. And they say that an elected member cannot present a petition or move a notice of motion for a matter that is exclusively outside their ward without the consent of the ward members or one of the ward members and the mayor. It is intended to ensure that the local knowledge of ward councillors is preserved. This would change it so that consent would not be required. However, the elected member would need to give the ward councillors written notice in advance of presenting the petition or moving the notice of motion.
Okay, so is it clarification on what Mr Blanchard said? Yes?
Sorry. Thank you. Just clarification through you, Ms Mayor, to Ms Blanchard. Under the Local Government Act, aren't we required to represent the City of Stirling? So can we explicitly, and I'm just asking the question because I've been told this time and time again, so can we explicitly state in our meeting procedures local law that only ward councillors can do ward things?
Okay, so this is specifically with petitions and notice of motion. Mr Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The change to the local law is about procedure. It's not about decision-making powers. Elected members would still be required to make their decisions based on what is best for the City of Stirling, its district and all its ratepayers and residents. This is simply the procedure for getting up a petition or a notice of motion. The Department of Local Government has reviewed the draft local law and did not have any objection in relation to these proposed clauses.
Yeah, and primarily the amendment, if I read it right, Councillor Thornton, it's just asking that there's still notification giving to the ward councillors, but they don't need to give you consent to do it.
Yes.
That's right. Okay, is there a seconder for the amendment, councillors? Councillor Farrelly. Is there anyone opposed to the amendment? Councillor Migdale. So Councillor Thornton, I'll just ask you, so we're just speaking about the amendment now, so if you just give us a reason why you think this amendment's important.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. The proposed amendment before you assists to strengthen our constituents' access rights at all times to notice of motions and petitions. Putting in place these amendments will help safeguard worst-case scenario situations where, under some circumstances, a suggested notice of motion may not be supported by the ward councillors and/or the mayor. By removing the requirement of consent and replacing it with give notice to said parties, it still achieves a collaborative approach, which was the original intent of this clause. Another point I wish to raise, supporting the original clauses opens the door for ward-specific governance, which would be contrary to the Act. Just like we do not perform ward accounting, we should not perform ward governance. And also, just to highlight the Act, in case those who are not familiar, specifically subsection 2.10, role of local councillors. It does not describe at the ward level the role of local government councillors. It does state the role of a councillor is to represent the interests of electors, ratepayers and residents of the district and to provide leadership, guidance and community in the district. In nowhere is there mention of wards. I also am not confident of a strong remedy safety net if the situation arose and a nom and/or petition was rejected. The remedy instrument suggested is for the council to suspend the meeting procedures and allow council to consider the motion. If the majority of elected members support this motion to suspend, then the notice of motion can be debated. So that's the remedy that's being offered. However, needing to suspend meeting procedures adds another unnecessary layer of complexity compared to allowing non-ward councillors to raise the notice of motion and petitions in the first instance.
Thank you, Councillor. Good debate, Councillor. Councillor Farrelly.
Look, I'm going to make it really confusing because I want to put an amendment to the additional to the A and B. I want to have C and D because I actually did have some concerns about the fact that the prayer no longer appears in the order of proceedings.
No, this is not relevant to the amendment. It's not even close to relevant to this amendment.
Well, I'd like to then, just a minute, I have got 4.5, item 2, notice of motion under subclause 1 must...
Can we deal with this one first? I think you're going to confuse this way too much. Let's get this amendment sorted. Let's get this amendment sorted, then you can debate what you want to do.
I agree with what's there, by the way. Yes.
Okay, so that's for you. So let's be... Guys, there's a lot of people speaking. Councillor Farrelly, you have seconded this amendment. Would you like to speak to the amendment, or are you happy just to say you support it? No, I support it. Okay. Councillor Migdale, would you like to talk against it, or are you happy just to put it to a vote? Okay. Just the amendment, are we going to speak to this? Oh, it's going to be a long night. Councillor Reid?
Well, we did have a choice to hold this over to discuss it at committee, but there you go.
No, it's good. This is what we should be doing, talking about it.
Sleepovers. I do believe that, ward accounting, we're not supposed to do a ward accounting, but everything seems to be in the last couple of months over ward accounting.
No, Councillor, I totally reject that. Councillor,
that is what this is trying
I
to
totally
stop.
reject that. There's been nothing to do with ward accounting come up.
Well, I think it does. If you sit there and say the call-ins, giving gifts, anything else like that is doing a ward accounting, which isn't. It is supposed to be, we are the councillors of the district representing the people of the district. When we make decisions, we're not making decisions, well, I can't make a decision on Mount Lawley, I can't make a decision on Nollamara. We have to collectively make a decision.
So, Councillor, again, you're making some very serious allegations tonight.
Well, I'm saying we collectively have to make
Councillor,
a decision.
I know, you have never been told you can't make a decision about another ward, and the fact that you talk about ward accounting is happening, I challenge you to put it in writing, because it is a serious allegation, and it goes against the Local Government Act, and I don't believe it happens. Continue with your debate.
Well, isn't this by saying that you have to have permission from a ward councillor exactly ward accounting? Because that's splitting it up.
No, it's very different. But let me be clear, and I don't want to debate you tonight, Councillor. That's very different, you debating this issue right now. What you said in your debate, and we can go back on the recording, you said this council over the last few months has done ward accounting.
And what I believe is what I classify
I'm
as
asking you to
ward
put it in
accounting.
writing after this meeting.
Well,
Continue with your debate.
I'm saying the ward accounting, in my interpretation and other people's interpretation, is with things like call-ins, things like giving them money, things like turning up to functions. That is what people are interpreting as ward accounting. If you don't interpret that, that's fine. That's how I'm interpreting it. That's how other people are seeing it.
It's defined in the Act, Councillor.
But that's how the interpretation people are feeling.
Continue. Can you debate this item, please?
Well, that is debating the item because it comes back to wards, which is the whole point we're talking about. My concern is when you've got some areas where you've got people who live in my ward but work in another ward that you can't make a comment or represent them or do anything, even though they live in your ward. You become shackled. That wasn't the idea of the Local Government Act. The whole idea is we've got to help everybody, irrespective of where you are. It should not be sitting there saying that. I'm concerned that we keep having all these issues to put us into little boxes. And that's how I feel, and that's how I feel. That's how people have come to me as well. And that disturbs me because it does go against the Local Government Act of the district. And that's my interpretation, that's other people's interpretation. Maybe the choice of words of accounting, it shouldn't be accounting, it may be differentiation or another adjective, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. But the disparity in the wards, this I think goes towards settling out some of the issues, some of the anomalies. So I do support this, but I think it's increasing when that disturbs me.
Thanks, Councillor. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak to this amendment? Councillor Lagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm a bit troubled by point A and B in this because, in my opinion, it disenfranchises the elected members. let's be honest, the West Australian Electoral Commission conducts elections where the voters of the region vote for a ward councillor. They expect you to not be getting notice of what's going on in your ward, to actually know what's going on in your ward. To replace things replace the words obtain written agreement with give notice, that could essentially mean I'll be the last person to know what's going on in my ward. I was elected to a ward. Everyone else was elected to a ward here. I should be the first person that should know what's going on, especially with notices of motions. It doesn't mean I'll say no, but that's the minimum the electors would expect.
Thank you. And I've got Councillor Proud next, then I've got Councillor Spagnolo.
Just quickly, you don't actually need that. What we all need to do and understand is respect other councillors in their wards, not be supplying wine and gifts or whatever we may do unless we were invited to and they couldn't. And I know Councillor Perkoff has presented at a number of graduations in schools that isn't in his ward. He's been asked to. So
Let's keep on topic.
Well,
I don't think Councillor Perkoff would appreciate.
This is about not taking and moving in and essentially acting as a different ward councillor. Now, look, I take plenty of emails or inquiries from residents in other wards because they might have known me from 20 years ago. So what do? I'll put it through to the officers and I'll copy in the ward councillors. So I just act, but I'm not running around making presentations and not telling the ward councillors. So it's not about telling them and getting written agreement. We're all adults here and we should be gracious enough to respect councillors. The way I like to be treated is the way I treat other members and other wards. It's really simple. We're grown-ups.
Councillor Spagnolo.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, look, I do have some reservations where you think, if you look at it, it looks like a local law is actually contradicting the Local Government Act. You know, when I first got elected to council, and in all my years on council, I have always represented the City of Stirling, whether I went to Mount Lawley, whether I went to Scarborough, whether I was in Osborne Park. And I think that applies to every councillor. The other thing is, I mean, I often get calls from other wards. Councillor Boothman probably does too, Councillor Reid probably does as well, and maybe some of the other councillors. Because sometimes you become, I guess, more prominent than other councillors. And people, if they've got an issue, they probably don't even know who their ward councillor is. Okay, these days you can easily look it up and find out who it is. But, you know, one of the things that I get from time to time, and I won't say that it's that often, is I've tried to ring the ward councillor, I've tried to ring both of them, or the three of them, or whoever it was, but I haven't been able to contact them. So it's very difficult. I think that we're here to provide a service to the people. And if that service means that I take on something in Mount Lawley, and I agree with Councillor Proud. I mean, as a courtesy, yes, you do let that councillor know, look, I've had a call from so-and-so, they've got this issue, are you okay with me following it through, or would you like to take care of it? In terms of going out to functions, I think it's great for councillors to be seen at the various functions. It's like, you know, if Councillor Perkov wants to turn up in my area, he's welcome. Anybody is welcome because they are members of the City of Stirling and they represent the whole of the city. So I think we mustn't forget that. And I think to drift away and start talking about, oh, you can't hand in a petition for another ward, or you can't go to a function at another ward. You know, it's getting almost to that point. I think it's absolutely ridiculous. I'll just give you one example, if I may, very quickly, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor, I think there are 13 senators in Western Australia. They represent all of Western Australia, all right? They don't just represent Mandurah or Perth. They're all over the place. Some of them get more calls than others. Some of them are busier than others. Some of them are not so busy. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. And I've got Councillor Sandri. We must be getting towards the end of this amendment.
Well, I just brought out my books. You could have given me a bit more time. I wanted to...
Are we having a treat? Are we having a reading tonight, Councillor?
What page would you like me to start on, Mr Mayor? No, anyway, I was actually going to look up the definition of ward accounting if it existed. But in any event, I was actually really on the fence until Councillor Lagan spoke. And I think a really prudent point is this. We are elected by the electors in our ward, so we really need to be notified of what's going on. And for that reason, I won't be supporting the motion, but I was on the fence until he did
Can I
say
just
that.
can I just ask you to clarify, and it's just to help you out here. You actually just said you need to be notified. I just want to let you know. Okay, because that's what the motion is.
Sorry, not
Yep.
notified. Written, well,
Provide written agreement. I'm
Okay.
fine. I just want to make sure you.
yeah, so I mean, I understand where the deferral came from now, and I would have supported it had I known what the issues were. Written agreement is still a bit mucky to me, but it's better than notification. Thanks.
Sure. Okay, so with that, I'll go to Councillor Thornton to close debate on the amendment.
Thank you. I think that my amendment the intent has been missed. Really central to this is the democratic process and the individual's right or our constituents' right to access notice of motions and petitions. And what I'm considering here is a worst case scenario where somebody goes to their ward councillor with, you know, an issue and says, can you help me? I'd like, you know, a notice of motion or a petition. And they both say no, and then the mayor says no. Where do they go then? They have no voice. So that was, yes, so that was my central intent of that. Not to shut down the
Point of
democratic process.
What's your point of order, Councillor?
The public has their rights to come to council and voice their opinion at any time.
Sure, but I don't think that's a point of order. I think Councillor Thornton's debate is entirely, or closes. Councillor Thornton, you can continue. It's fine.
Thank you. So in my closing, notice of motions and petitions form an important part of the democratic process, and for our constituents to have access at all times, these are important rights of the individual. The ability of our electors, ratepayers and residents in the district to raise important issues of concern should not be impeded, and they can be by the previous or the original local law. We must not create local laws which diminish access of our constituents to the various democracy tools which then subsequently weakens democracy. This is everybody's chamber, and we must not restrict its access or its tools. I believe this amendment achieves a collaborative approach and is good etiquette. I have trust you will support this amendment before you.
Thank you, Councillor Thornton. And with that, that closes the debate. So what we're voting on here, councillors, just to be clear before you press that button, is the stuff in red. Yeah? So we've got the amendment and we're moved. So we're talking about just changing those parts. So I'll put that to the vote if you support it or don't. Got Councillor Proud to go, Councillor Ferranti. Thank you. And that, the amendment, Councillor, careful. Councillor, would you like to retract that? Because you're on live stream. It's up to you. I'm looking at you, Councillor Ree.
Do you want the whole conversation with
No, I would suggest just your statement that you yelled out.
Which one?
About that vote was because of factions.
That is because
Councillor, I'm asking if you'd like to retract it, yes or no?
Okay, I would retract it. Just
Thank you.
my
Take a
little
seat.
bit. No problem.
Okay, that motion is lost. That goes back to the substantive motion, moved Councillor Sandri and seconded Councillor Migdale. This is what we are now voting on.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to put an amendment to that still,
Just wait. Where were we up to? And then we had the amendment?
Yes.
Okay, so Councillor Farrelly.
I'd like to add some further, where I'd like to, through you, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
Is that the amendment in regard to, for instance, in the start of meetings we've had as traditional a prayer, and I noticed that in the latest policy that there is no mention of that. I don't recall that as being reviewed, discussed or...
Councillor Farrelly, I want to get clarification because I know you've received this today, so take a seat for a sec. Yep, it has been passed around because you've already raised this today. Manager of Governance, Mr Blanchard, can you clarify please?
No, I didn't discuss that with them, I just did the other thing.
I know you asked it today because we all received it by email. Mr Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The opening prayer forms part of the preliminary proceedings of Council. It has never been part of the city's meeting procedures local law, and therefore is not proposed to be part of the future meeting procedures local law, because the practice will continue as preliminary proceedings.
My apologies then, Mr Manager of Governance. The one thing I do want to ask a question of before we do vote on this is something quite different. It goes back
so
to...
you're debating this, but you said you had some amendments. Was that the only one?
At the moment, yes.
Yes. You're running out of time.
I was
Continue debating.
I was hoping we'd go into consideration because of other things. But in terms of notice of motion 4.5 part 2, B, be given at least 5 clear working days before the meeting at which the motion is moved. This is about notice of motions on page 94 of the amended what's it, meeting procedures local law. Does that mean that you can't put a notice of motion at the end of, propose a notice of motion at the end of a council meeting? Or, so what's this 5 days? Because I'm just trying to think 5 days.
No, but that gives you, if you do it at the end of a council meeting, that gives you 2 clear weeks.
Right, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so this is just about on the week leading into a council meeting, there's enough time for governance to be able to add it, include it into the minutes and be responded to, so officers have time to respond. Yep. All right, is anyone else who'd like to debate the substantive? If Councillor Ree?
Thank you. On page 4.8, 4.5 on page 94, is it possible to actually do the amendment to say, following on from Councillor Farrelly's comments about 4 clear working days, because to have 5 clear working days, it's before the committee meeting, not after. And when you're debating in a committee, you listen to people around the table who are looking at the interests of the district, making comments about various things, and therefore you could change your opinion, or something could happen that you sit there and think we should go A, B or C. So
I'll give you the simple response. This was discussed previously, and notice of motions very rarely have anything to do with the items on the committee agenda. They're normally the recommendations that you're discussing during that committee meeting. They go as recommendations to council. This is those notice of motions that you bring up during the week, which generally have no relevance. They're to do with things like your community issues, etc. So I don't think they're related. I don't think the fact that it's a committee meeting night and you put your notice of motion. This is purely about ensuring that the time frame officers, if a councillor puts up a notice of motion, for example, on a Wednesday at lunchtime, it's very unrealistic that it has time to be processed, go through an officer and a report written and be included for agenda review and then on the agenda on Friday. It's just unreasonable. So this is about providing clear time so that your notice of motions can be given due care.
So is that the same as that we only get the agendas on Saturday and we only have
Friday.
one day in which to discuss it with the staff for Tuesday?
So you get them on Friday and you have all weekend, as many of you
Which
do.
there are no staff to talk to on the weekend.
I'm sure some of the staff here would beg to differ. They'd be very happy if that was the case. And you have all Monday and Tuesday.
Yeah, all Monday and Tuesday.
Yep.
Yes.
But again, remembering that most council meetings you've also had the week prior with committee meetings. So it's not like most of them are surprised.
That's why I'm saying with the committee meetings that we should have the 4 days and not the 5 days. And I don't think and I really don't, if something arises at the committee meeting or something you want to talk about the committee meetings, and I could raise the issue of the plaques, that was ruled out of order because it was going to be discussed, which I will talk about again through this document, then if we had 4 days, then after the discussion at the committee meeting, it could have been a totally different notice of motion. So I still believe that you need 4 days, and I don't believe the staff need any more 4 days because they're the ones that have got all the information, they're the ones that got the reports. We've only got a couple of days in which to read it and our community to sit there and say yes, no, or whether they like it. So we're not only processing it for us, we're processing it for other people's comments, and also the media might sit there and write something about it, which might change your mind or might give you more knowledge, therefore you would make a different decision. And I think all of that adds up to be better governance. and allowing us to sit there and do our jobs properly for the better of the district. And so that's why I'm saying, I think after a committee meeting, we should be able to sit there and put up a notice of motion to be considered at the next meeting. That is 4 working days. So they would get all Wednesday, all Thursday, all Friday, and actually they get all Monday, and really they get 5 days because they end up with Tuesday.
Councillor, you're missing the point. So I think, one, I honestly think you're confusing an amendment to a motion or a motion on the table with a notice of motion. But to suggest that officers have enough time when it was put in on Wednesday, agenda review would normally happen through the week on Thursday at the latest, ready for printing of a massive agenda, as you're all aware, on a Friday. It is not appropriate for council minutes or agendas to go out on a Friday and then notice of motions be still rushing on a Monday and go to council. It goes against what you're trying to debate. There's nothing wrong. If you put a notice of motion up on that Wednesday or Thursday, it just means it waits to the next cycle. It's 2 weeks away. It's perfectly logical, and I'm sure most councillors would appreciate that their notice of motion be given due care by the officers and due research to make sure that there's factual information included.
I have been in the situation where the notices of motion have been advised by the staff that there was insufficient time, even though they've had 5 or 6 days. So, and I don't think anyone would complain about that.
Sure.
It's not like you're sitting there saying, you know, should we go and invest in lemon trees on Mars? We're not asking for a major report. But if it is, then quite a lot of times that they'll just say there wasn't enough information. And that's fine. Nobody's going to object to that.
Sure.
I'm just saying I think the 4 days are more logical. With, what is it, 4.55, where it's ruled out of order, they're giving a reason for its exclusion to a member who gave the notice as soon as practicable. I'm concerned that with that one, if we look at 6.1.4 on page 15, just cross-reference that one. If we look at that one again, it says questions on notice, everything is to be answered and included into the agenda. So my point is, if you put a notice of motion, it seems to be odd, and I'm not quite sure what that adjective I'll use, but we'll just go with odd, that some notices of motions that are withdrawn end up in the agenda or the minutes and some don't. The reasons for them in or out...
30 seconds, councillor. I'm just giving you time.
30 seconds. Well, then I'll ask for an extension, please, after my 30 seconds. You sit there and you...
It's a meeting procedures, local law. I'm just telling you the time.
I know.
Continue. You're wasting your 30 seconds.
I should get time out for your comments too. And that'll make me get more seconds. When you do the notices of motion, we actually should have a reason why. The public, the councillors around the table, as we've seen, some councillors have put up a notice of motion and then it disappears because it was ruled out of order. I actually, by reading this, it actually says the CEO is to make a comment. So my comment is,
I can confirm that any time a notice of motion is ruled out of order, the person who put that notice of motion up is given the reason.
No, I'm saying it should be in the minutes. It should be in here.
No, it shouldn't, because it's been ruled out of order.
Yeah, but some notices...
Councillor, you're now out of time, so I will ask, would you like an extension?
Can I have an extension, please?
You can ask for an extension.
May I please have an extension?
Is there someone who seconds? Councillor Spagnolo, I'll put it to the vote. Oh, just on the electronic, I've gone. That's backfired hands. Okay, so 4 we have Councillor Spagnolo, Thornton, Sargent, Farrelly, Proud, Ree, Perkoff, Lagan, Sandri and myself. And against we have Councillor Boothman, Ferranti and Migdale. It's carried. Off you go, Councillor.
My point is that whole point was for transparency. If members of the public see that we actually make a comment, whatever it is, notice of motion, and then it disappears. I think that it needs to stay in the agenda and the reason why. And that's my concern. And that's not addressed in here. The way I read it, it says the CEO is supposed to. and that's my only thing. So I think that needs to be cleaned up, whether or not we do it under 4.5 or we do it under 6.1, either one. And that's one of the reasons why I said it's held over. And I have had discussions, various discussions regarding these meeting procedure guidelines. With regard to, can we address that?
Yes, you can. I'm waiting for you to address it.
Well, I'd like to move that the notices of motion.
So you want to add an item for?
The notices of motion and what's the other one called? Yeah, notices of motion.
When ruled out of order are published in the minutes.
Yeah.
With
and
a reason.
Reasons therefore. The reasons of therefore.
Okay. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Farrelly.
They're in. That's probably.
Are you happy if we just put that to the vote? Yep. So Councillor Rees, second to Councillor Farrelly, that notice motion when ruled out of order be published in the minutes. Let's vote on that, please. And we're going to... Okay, we've got a few more votes to come in. Proud and Sandri. That motion is carried. There you go. No, you don't have to apologise. Thank you. Is that the end of your debate, Councillor? Then continue.
Also on page, thank you, councillors, for that. That's really exciting. Made my day. 6.1.4. I should have done it. My apologies. I should have done it in pages. When we have the questions on that is not withdrawn or excluded under subclause, must be included in the agenda in the meeting along with an answer from the CEO. Every question should be submitted as briefly and concisely as possible. Can we have that it says questions during debate, it goes on, but questions on notice, it's up to the presiding member. I think we should actually change that to that it can be debated, not debated. It can be, there's another word for it, not debated, considered. It can be considered. This way it is, and I know, Mr Mayor, I've been very lucky. A couple of times you've actually said yes to me, a couple of times. So that was good. But I do think that these questions on notice, we should be allowed to actually, like recently, one about the street trees. You know, I asked a question about the street trees. More recently, let's go with the plaques. I asked the question about the plaques, and we had, 76 plaques that we didn't know where they were, and all sorts of no registers, etc. I know for a fact that caused a lot of questions around council table, but a lot of questions in the community. And so I think the questions on notice we should be allowed to discuss, and it should not just be up to the presiding member, because depending on who the presiding member is or how they feel, that could be stifled. So
Councillor,
whether
again,
or not it could be changed.
I understand what you're saying, Councillor, but if it's a sensible reason and a councillor had questions on notice or questions from members of the public taken on notice that are published in the agenda and council wish to ask questions, if a council saw me beforehand, as I've proven, it would be if it's a reasonable question or clarification. But it's not appropriate to open up questions like that for a full debate of council when there's no decision-making process around it, which is what a council meeting's for. If it was that important, I'd expect the councillor to put a notice of motion up so it became an item on the agenda that can be debated. You can see we would spend half an hour going around the table talking about questions on notice with no end result. It would be pointless.
About that, that's what I did with the plaque policy, but there you go. I just think that there should be something in here that actually says if you wanted to, open up for debate or whatever, that even if it says the presiding member, even though it says the presiding member under the presiding member requirements can actually choose to make anybody talk if they want to or raise any issue, blah, 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 but to make it specific that the questions on notice can be discussed if need be. I'd like that titled up to make it a little bit easier. That's my opinion. Why you're nice, this is good. My other one is...
I just have to clarify again, and again, I don't want to debate you, Councillor, but it goes against all good governance principles to discuss an item that doesn't have a clear motion or any information or proper information that's been given so you can make a factual-based decision. That's why it's done that way. But if from a question on notice, you didn't get the information you wanted, I normally allow you to ask some clarification. If you didn't get that, you can easily formulate that into a notice of motion at the end of the meeting or following the week, and it would come back as a notice of motion for that discussion at the following. So those avenues are already there.
As I said, my plaque policy, this is where it first got raised, and I do take your comments on board, and yes, you've been good with some of them. 9.10 on page 22. An amendment to a substantive motion cannot negate the original motion or substantive intent of the original motion. If you look at the motion that came up from Councillor Spagnolo about keeping the name of the City of Stirling...
30 seconds, Councillor, and you probably won't get so lucky this time.
The motion was keep the name of the City of Stirling, and then Councillor Sandry put up to refer it to...
Councillor, I think this is irrelevant to this motion now. You're getting way off track.
But that's my point, that if they're totally different, what happens if they are?
That's in your opinion. See, one of the few benefits I get as chair is to preside over the meeting and make those calls. And I made a call that night. Have you got anything else you'd like to debate related to this? Okay. So with that, close. Anyone else who'd like to debate this item? If not, I will go to Councillor Sandry to close debate. She's happy to close it. So it's moved Councillor Sandry, seconded Councillor Migdal, with Councillor Ree's notably excited amendment that has been added as item 4. I will now put that to the vote. Thanks, councillors, and that motion is carried with Councillor Boothman, Farrelly, Ferrante, Lagan, Migdal, Perkoff, Proud, Sandry, Sargent, Spagnola and myself for. Councillor Ree. After all that, how could you vote? and Councillor Thornton voting against. I have no words, but I will go on to item 13.3, the 2021 West Australian Local Government Association Annual General Meeting and Annual Conference on page 182. Do I have a mover of a motion? Councillor Ree.
Yes, and my apologies, I will call, and I wasn't privy to a discussion earlier on. I'm not quite sure, the way this is written, I'm not quite sure who's attending, but so therefore, with your consideration first, can we ask who's attending? I mean, I'm happy to be a delegate, but I don't know who actually is attending, so that would go to number 3.
All right, so I will be attending. Have you got some names you'd like to try out?
Okay, so if we have Mayor Irwin, Councillor Ree, Councillor Thornton, Councillor Lagan. Who else put up their hand then? They're not on North Zone. Yeah, they've got to be on North Zone. No, they don't.
Yeah, I don't think you have to be on North Zone for Wagga.
Zone.
Yeah, so...
Councillor Farrelly. Who else was there?
Okay, you've got a lot of people there. So I think we've got 2 positions, is it?
4.
And 2 proxies, yeah. So are you reading them out in the order you'd like them written here?
Oh.
I think if we start with something, so let's have myself, then Councillor Ree on that second line, Councillor Thornton as first proxy and Councillor Lagan as second proxy. That's how you've read them out. We're happy with... Are the councillors whose names been read out happy to be there and planning to be present at Wagga? So I just need to check. So Councillor Thornton, were you planning to be at the Wagga conference? Yes? Yeah. Yeah, okay. So let's swap that out for Councillor Farrelly. No, she just said she won't be there. So,
Mr. Mayor, with your indulgence, do we have to name on 3 legally because it's a caretaker period?
No. This is so. Just to be clear, the reason this came about was it became apparent at the last zone meeting that during our caretaker period there is a requirement that you can't attend conferences, etc. the obvious discrepancy with this is that there's very little benefit to be gained from public votes, etc., at a WALGA conference. They're pretty dry, let me tell you. And it seems silly when it is the actual local government conference that provides information and learnings to councillors to deny councillors that opportunity to do it. So it was just one of those anomalies with the way it reads. So that's why this came about in that last point. Yep, so let's get this. Is it just to ask a question about that or an actual change in the motion? Because we haven't got a second. Okay, let's get a seconder for this motion first. Is there a seconder for this motion? Councillor Farrelly. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Proud. You would like to, so maybe we don't really need to speak to this one. It's pretty self-explanatory. Councillor Proud, what's your amendment?
My amendment is, number one, yourself, the Mayor. Number two is Councillor Lagan. Third one, myself, Proud. And fourth one, Chris Hatton. We're all on North Zone. And as far as I know, I've been told, all those four are turning up and are available, and I'm already booked to go to WALGA, as you are, as Councillor Lagan is, and Councillor Hatton, as far as I know.
Okay, so Councillor Hatton's not here to ask. I'm happy. Councillor Lagan's quite happy, I think, at this stage to stay there. I'm happy to step off and let you go on as nomination. Believe me, it's not a highlight of my life having a vote at a WALGA conference on behalf of the council. We'll all be in attendance anyway, so a council will be there to discuss it. So I'm happy if Councillor Proud, if you'd like to have voting rights, I'm happy to hand them over. So A becomes Councillor Proud. That way, because you won't get, it's not an amendment, it's a completely different motion, or we have to go to a vote. So let's be practical. So we'll get Mayor Proud.
No, we just change it to councillor.
Thanks. We'll search. There you go. So Councillor Proud, Councillor Ree, and then Councillor Farrelly and Councillor Lagan are the proxies. All right? And given Councillor Hatton isn't here to accept, because we don't even know if he's definitely going to be there just because he's on North Zone. All right. So if there's no one...
Farrelly and I are actually deputies for North Zone anyway.
Yeah, sure. And again, it's irrelevant. The council will many members of the council will be there and they'll be able to discuss it. So I will put that to the vote. Noting that Councillor McDowell is out of the chamber, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. I'll now go to item 13.4, the appointment of representatives from Mindarie and the Metro Inner North Joint Development and Assessment Panel. Councillor Sandri, your motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I wish to move the officer's recommendation, which appoints Councillor Lisa Thornton as the alternative member to be the substantiated member for MRC. And there is a blank nomination for the Metro Inner North JDAP until January next year. Can I just receive confirmation who would like it from Councillor Farrelly and Councillor Ree, as they are currently the alternatives?
Sure. So, Councillor Farrelly, would you like to be the JDAP?
Yes, I've already got notification on 3 of the JDAPs in August already.
No, you haven't got any notification from this council though. So you're both.
Yes.
You're both. Yes.
Sorry, just to
Councillor Ree.
Yeah.
That's fine with me. I'm still stay as deputy. That's
Okay.
That's fine.
And just for clarity, through you, Mr Mayor, sorry. Sorry, because one of the alternatives is being pushed up into a substantive position.
Do we need another deputy?
Put another deputy?
Yeah. So we normally have 2 deputies. So the question is, obviously, Councillor Ree is currently a deputy, so I'm assuming she remains a deputy. Do we now need to appoint another deputy just in case? And
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It's open to council to appoint another deputy. If it was, it would need to be a trained DAP deputy.
In that case, I'm happy to nominate myself.
Councillor Sanders.
Thank you.
So can we have, that Councillor Ree remains as the deputy, but we also nominate Councillor Sandri as the next deputy, just in case something happens. If you're away and Councillor Ree can't attend, we've only got a couple to go, but I think it's worthwhile. And they're all trained, so it makes perfect sense. Yeah. Great. So I'm happy just to put that straight to the vote. I don't think it's pretty self-explanatory. It doesn't need any debate unless there's any. Yeah, Councillor McDowell. So what we're proposing, just because you were out the chamber, is Councillor, you better do that. Yeah. Councillor Sundry has moved that Councillor Thornton does Mindari and Councillor Farrelly does JDAP. The councilloree remains as a deputy, but Bianca Sundry, Councillor Sundry, is also added to that as a second deputy. And we'll get Councillor Sargent as the seconder, and I will put that to the vote. Good work, councillors. That is unanimous. Item 14, motions of which previous notice has been given. Item 14.1, Councillor Elizabeth Ree, notice of motion, invitation to parliamentarians.
Please. On page 195, that my recommendation is that the policy be compiled and presented to the Community and Resource meeting to be held 24th of August with regard to invitations to parliamentarians whose electorates are within the City of Stirling local government municipality, that the policy includes items such as all parliamentarians whose electorates are within the City of Stirling municipality are to be invited to all major events such as citizenship, limited of maximum of 3 parliamentarians per political party per event. If the parliamentarians cannot attend then the invitation is not transferable to staff or family or friends. The definition of parliamentarian is of those persons who are elected to WA state or federal government in Australia, and I so move.
Thank you. Is there a second for that motion? Councillor Migdale, is there anyone who'd like to debate this item? Councillor Proud?
I just want to foreshadow the officers recommend the alternative.
Sure. Can I just have a look at item first one? Yep. So it's just that the policy be compiled and presented to a community and resource for discussion. So it's not that it happens. Okay. So Councillor Proud has foreshadowed the officer's recommendation. Is there anyone who'd like to debate this item? If not, we'll put it to the vote. So what we've got is Councillor Ree's original recommendation, but if that lapses or fails, we will go to the foreshadowed motion of the officer's recommendation put by Councillor Proud. All right. So, yeah. Yeah, Councillor Ree's just asking for a report with what a policy would look like. If we can just have the voting up. Thanks. Thank you. And that item is carried. Councillor Farrelly, Ferrante, Lagan, Migdale, Perkoff, Ree, Sandry, Spagnolo, Thornton and myself voting for and against Boothman, Proud and Sargent. Now going to item 14.2, notice of motion, Councillor Elizabeth Ree, male incontinence facilities in toilets. This will be interesting. Councillor Ree.
I won't make a comment on that one.
Good idea.
That a report be prepared to the Community and Resource meeting to be held 24th of August with regard to the City of Stirling promoting and making available receptacles for the disposal of incontinence products in male toilet facilities. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Migdale has seconded that. Is there anyone opposed? I have a question, if I may, Councillor Ree, and it's to you. And I was just curious because I'm aware that female incontinence, for example, is a private responsibility of the clubs, etc. So why have you chosen not to add female into this requesting? I get where it came about for male, but why have you not asked to include female as well?
Apparently females are already addressed. So what they're saying...
It's only because the intent of yours seems to me, and I'm just trying to get clarification. Females aren't addressed by the City of Stirling from what I know. So any club is responsible or any organisation is responsible for their own... Sure. So it's only in public, so it's nothing to do with clubs?
Mr Mayor, is only for a report which might flesh out those things, but from the presentation I went to, they actually said that the receptacles used for sanitary pads, etc., are the same used for incontinence pads for women. However, men are not going out as much as they should. They're feeling more vulnerable because when they go to a toilet, a public toilet, they've got a urinal. They may have one toilet, but there are no receptacles.
Yep. So I get that. It was only, and again, it just wasn't clear in this motion. So sorry, because it just said in male public toilets. So I just assumed it's all male public toilets, including our sporting clubs. But the intent isn't. Okay, that's right. So there's no one against it. So we'll put that motion. Move Councillor Ree, seconded Councillor Migdale. You can go to the vote. You better vote on it now, Councillor Ree. There you go, and that is unanimous, thank you. And item 14.3, notice of motion, Councillor Susan Migdale, Internal Working Group to guide future planning for the Mount Lawley Edith Cowan University on page 202. Councillor Migdale.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the notice of motion, please, on page 202.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? And Councillor Ferrante, you seconded. Is there anyone opposed? You can ask a question if you like. Yeah. Oh. Well, it's not open for debate, but if you would like to have a quick question.
Yeah, the question is, I noticed the Minister has responded, but the local MP has not. Has there been any last-minute correspondence that may be included, or is it not appeared? So the absence of the local MP has not responded to any correspondence that we've sent?
Not that I'm aware of.
Mr Mayor.
Have you got a question, Migdale? Councillor Migdale? It's getting late. That was a little abrupt. My apologies.
There are no words, Mr Mayor. Well, seeing as the question was asked, I'm wondering if you might indulge me just to just make one or two comments just very briefly.
Just very quickly. We're at the end of the agenda.
Yeah. I hope you've all had a chance to read this notice of motion, and what this is an attempt to get out in front of future plans that our state government will make for a very substantial land holding in the middle of our ward. And what we'd like to do here is be proactive rather than reactive, as we are seeing in several other wards in the City of Stirling with plans that have been put in place for various developments. So what we want to do, and our intention is very clearly that we would like to be able to discuss opportunities for the betterment of the entire city through outcomes, potential outcomes for this site, and obviously take this out for consultation to the community and work as diligently as possible to come up with the absolute highest and best use of this land holding to better serve all of our residents and ratepayers. So I hope that you do support this, and I very much look forward to gathering information and bringing it back to Council in order to assist state government with their decision making on the future of this site. Thank you.
And that motion is moved. Councillor Migdale, seconded Councillor Ferrante. I'll put that to the vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 15, notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillors, would you like to submit any notice of motion for consideration at the next meeting in 14 days' time? Councillor Sundry.
Mr Mayor, I haven't put a notice of motion up for a while, other than my joke one, so I do have three with your indulgence. The first one is that a report be presented to Council to review the ongoing on-street parking issues of the avenues in Inglewood on the west side of Beaufort Street up to Clifton Crescent, because Councillor Lagan and I keep receiving...
Clifton Street?
Clifton Crescent.
Crescent, okay.
There's another two, don't stress, I'll give these to you in a second. A report be presented to Council regarding receptacles for disposal of sanitary products for women sporting clubs supporting women in sports, because we don't currently provide those facilities for women's sporting clubs, and we recently had an issue with a sporting club regarding that, so if we can explore it.
Couldn't that have been an amendment to that previous one?
Well, I'm happy for it to be added. I could remove that notice of motion, and if the officers are happy to include it.
And that was why I was trying to seek some clarification when it came up, because it seems so narrow. I would say, if it's all right with you, it makes sense to withdraw it if the... I'm sure the intent is that the report brings all that sort of stuff back.
Fine, happy with that, thank you. And then the third one is a report be provided to Council exploring the appropriateness of shared electric scooter facilities in the City of Stirling with a view of supporting tourism and movability.
Yes.
Thank you.
Love the electric scooters. Yes. I'm a fan of the electric scooters. Oh yeah. Councillor Ree, your notice of motion, please.
My notice of motion, please.
Which one?
That additional seating and safety lighting be installed around the Pony Club on Herdsman to address the increased use of the facilities, as Jackadder Music Club has relocated to the Pony Club, with the increase in people walking around the Pony Club due to COVID. Additionally, there needs to be an upgrade to the basic needs of safety, lighting and seating, please.
Thank you, Councillor. Is there any other indication? No indication. Then I will go to item 16, questions by members which due notice has been given. I have nil. Item 17, new business of an urgent nature. I have nil. That brings to item 18, matters behind closed doors. We do have one, so we'll ask councillors if we can have a motion to go behind closed doors. Move Councillor Sandry, seconded Councillor Proud. Just a show of hands quickly. That is unanimous. Thank you. Members of the gallery and those at home, please be advised that we will just be going behind closed doors.
Stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter. City of Stirling leisure centres in Inglewood, Scarborough and Balga have world-class facilities including indoor and outdoor pools, a comprehensive group fitness timetable and learn to swim programs for babies through to adults. You can swim all year round with our perfectly heated pools. For further information, visit www.stirling.wa.gov.au/recreation or subscribe to our e-newsletter.
Doors ready to close. Oh, I don't care. And we will just... Just what? Okay. Thanks. We'll just wait for everyone to come back on. I'll just... That's right. So I can tell you that the council report, the council did endorse item 18.1, which is a confidential item, and the alternative recommendation was endorsed. That now brings us to item 19, which is closure of the meeting. I now declare the meeting closed at 9:36 p.m. I thank the remaining member of the gallery for your attendance and bid you good night. And for those members at home, good night to you and thank you for watching this evening.